probably Ari saw an opening and a way to, he saw the synergies that could be done or, implemented by having UFC, that's really a sports, property. And WWE is this juggernaut in entertainment, right? That's I don't want to, I'm not telling anyone a secret, but it's all arranged. I know. It's all scripted. And USC is obviously not scripted, and that's, a true sport, quote unquote. But building them together, their businesses are very much aligned.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Code. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce to you Isabelle Mercier, Vice President and Associate General Counsel at Endeavor, a global leader in the sports and entertainment industry. Today, we will talk about Isabelle's journey as a sports lawyer and explore her vision for the legal profession in sports law as she navigates into the burning hot landscape of legal practice in sports and entertainment. We'll also open the discussion on some hot topics such as UFC and other professional sports property development. Isabelle will be as detailed as possible, but will be mindful of the limits she can talk about since she's working for a public company. So, Isabelle, let's get started.
Let's do it.
With your academic background, so where did you study?
Okay.
Well, let's not start from age.
From
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Let's start. All right. So, university, law school.
I went to law school at University of Montreal.
Yeah.
Graduated in 2009. Worked in Montreal for a few years, and then did my LLM at Duke University in North Carolina, where I, try to focus on sports, IP, entertainment, and arbitration, which I thought were highly relevant for the foregoing practice of sports law.
Yeah.
And then I moved to New York 10 years ago now. Worked at a firm called Winston & Strawn. Where I was
Already 10 years? 10 years in New York.
I know,
Wow.
it flies by.
So you worked.
I never sleep, so I can't say I slept a lot in those 10 years.
So you started the first firm was?
So I worked at Cain Lamar and Stikeman Elliott in Montreal, and then I worked at Winston & Strawn in New York in their sports litigation group.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've now been at Endeavor as a vice president in the legal department for 4 years now.
Oh, 4 years. Okay. And did you get, what was your first position there at Endeavor?
I started as a VP and counsel. Now I'm VP and associate general counsel.
Okay, so tell us about that. I mean, first of all, let's get into Endeavor. Tell us a little bit about the company.
That's a big question. So a lot of people don't know how broad Endeavor is, and it's really, well, as Patrice mentioned, it is a public company. It's on the NYSE, the ticker is EDR. We went public in April 2021. And as also you said, it's a leader in sports and entertainment, but it's very, very vast. So a lot of the company, I'll give you the story, how it came about, because I think it's very telling, and we're a company of storytellers, as I think you noted in your notes. It was founded by Ari Emanuel, who's the brother of Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of Chicago, but more importantly, the inspiration for the character Ari Gold on the show Entourage. Have you watched it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a big fan.
What do you think of Ari as a character?
As a character, he was great. In real life,
you'd want to work for.
In real life, I'm not sure I'd like to be on the opposite table of him, negotiating.
That is true.
On the same side of the table, sure.
Well said. And I think that's how his clients feel. So that's great. So Ari, was a Hollywood talent agent, founded his own agency, acquired WMA, which was a William Morris agency, which is this legendary agency from the 1800s. They merged to form WME, which still exists today, and it's still the top, if not one of the tops, if not the top talent agency in Hollywood. And in 2014, WME acquired IMG to form the juggernaut that you're aware of. I know we've talked about IMG multiple times before because it's very involved in, or owns and represents athletes and owns sports properties and also fashion.
So for a long time, IMG was the sporting agency for all the top athletes.
I'd argue it still is. Just now, it's part of.
Yeah, but
Endeavor,
yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
And so with WIMG merging, so then it became this powerhouse in sports, entertainment, and fashion. And 2 years later, in 2016, Ari decided he wanted to buy the UFC. And he eventually bought it for $4 billion. And back then, at the time, the market was very, I guess, people in the market made comments as to he overpaid for the property, or he didn't really understand the product or whatnot. And it turned out Ari was absolutely right. If not, he usually is right, as you may guess. But his gamble totally paid off. He bought the UFC in 2016 for $4 billion, and I don't have the numbers here with me, but last year in 2023, we can talk about it later. Endeavor spun off UFC to then merge it with WWE, and at that time, that merger was worth, the company to be formed was named TKO and was worth $20 billion. So that was last year, and part of that merger, I think UFC was valued at $12 billion. That's public information. So from the time Ari bought it in 2016 to 2023, it tripled in value, or estimated value. So
that's a great investment.
Yeah.
Better than Bitcoin, I think.
Oh, look, Bitcoin's coming back. But yeah,
a little bit more predictable.
Ari he usually has a vision, and that one really worked out.
So correct me if I'm wrong on this little blurb about Endeavor that I prepared. So Endeavor is literally a powerhouse in the world of entertainment and sports, encapsulating the vibrant essence of global storytelling, brand management, and event production. So it emerged from the merger between William Morris Agency, like you said, and an Endeavor Talent Agency in 2009. The company has expanded its reach far beyond its original scope. Endeavor now stands as a multifaceted organization, not only representing top-tier talent in film, television, music, and beyond, but also owning and managing a portfolio of high-profile sports properties, including the Miami Open, Madrid Open, and professional bull riders. In its journey, Endeavor has strategically broadened its capabilities through significant acquisitions such as IMG in 2013 for $2.4 billion, like you said, the UFC in 2016 for $4 billion, marking the largest ever acquisition in the sports industry at the time. These moves have solidified its position at the nexus of sports, entertainment, and media, further diversified by its entry into esports and digital content. In 2021, Endeavor went public on the New York Stock Exchange, and in 2023, TKO Group Holdings was formed through a merger between UFC and WWE, like you said, making it a pure play sports entertainment company. And TKO is a publicly registered company on the NYSE, and anybody can buy a stock. So.
Correct.
All right. So this is like huge. And I knew a little bit about Endeavor, but preparing for this podcast, I was blown away with how Endeavor has identified where sports is going as a content producer.
Yep.
In the current market, but also for the next 30 years. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Of course, we're not going to get into all the strategic details of where Endeavor is going, obviously, but this was not the landscape 10 years ago.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's two things to be said about Endeavor, how broad and involved it is in so many aspects of the sports and entertainment industry that people don't realize. But I think, as we talked about, Endeavor is involved in some respect in most important sports events in the world, and that's on the media production, events production, or owning our own events like the Madrid and the Miami Open you just mentioned, representing artists or athletes. We have the exclusive rights to as the hospitality provider for the next 3 Olympics, starting with Paris this summer. So we're very, and I'm missing a bunch of things, but we're very involved on so many layers, on so many layers of the sports industry. And
I was surprised. You're mentioning the next 3 Olympics, so I was surprised to see that you're also delving into the IOC, with dealing with the IOC as not an international federation, not a sports federation, but a hospitality provider. So what service are you providing? What's in the hospitality provider in the context of Olympic Games? Because people don't know.
Well, it's a good question, because it's the first time they have a hospitality partner. Usually the IOC does it on their own, and this time, our subsidiary On Location Experience, pitched. There were many obviously companies that pitched for it, and we won the bid. And essentially, what we're selling is an experience. So I'd say at most, and this is how I can explain OLE's business. I'm sure people at OLE would find that oversimplistic, but we sell tickets plus. So ticket plus access to a lounge or a VIP experience or plane tickets, hotels, whatnot. Like it's to provide an experience like top class essentially, and we work hand in hand with in this instance Paris 2024 to make that a memorable experience. And by the way, I encourage everyone to buy tickets at On Location. There's going to be an opening ceremonies, really cool events this year, like beach volleyball under the Eiffel Tower. So yeah, if you happen to be in France this summer, I highly recommend you buying a ticket.
I think there's a huge market for this, and because here's I've been involved with the Olympic Games for a long time. I've been to
as an arbitrator, right?
As an arbitrator, but also as a counsel for Canadian athletes on 3 Olympic Games. I've been to, I think, 8 Olympic Games in different capacities.
Not bad for a lawyer?
Not bad for a lawyer or someone who would have liked to attend as an athlete was not good enough. So, you find your way. But Olympic Games is the premium sports event. I mean, the Super Bowl's great and all that, but it's one sport, right?
We're involved with the Super Bowl too.
Yeah, it's a great event. It's a great event.
And
but the Olympic
worldwide.
Games, it's worldwide. It's international. It's about representing a country, not necessarily a club. It's all about. There's a lot of aspirations behind the Olympic spirit, and it's all about peace as well. So we can't forget that. But sometimes people will, with a lot of money, I mean, they have money flowing out of their pockets and they go, I want to go to the Olympic Games. I want to have the best experience. And I'm like, well, buy your tickets and then figure out your hotel and then, walk around in the streets of the city. But then what I'm hearing is that those people who have unlimited resources can actually go to you guys and say, all right, here's how much does it cost for me for a 5-day experience during Olympic Games. And I want to go to the opening ceremonies. I want to be in a 5-star hotel, and I want to be to VIP events and maybe shake hands with the Prince Albert of Monaco. And can you make it happen? And I guess the answer would be yes, and then there would be a price tag.
I don't know about the handshake part, but I think the rest seems pretty on point. I mean, it's the experience. You choose bronze, silver, gold, your levels. So yeah totally. It's a sort of one-stop shop. The
times I've been to the Olympic Games, I was fortunate enough to have accreditation on some of those games. And it's really a game changer. It's night and day. When you have accreditation, you have access to a few of the places. It's amazing. When you don't have access, it's a great experience too, but you need to buy your tickets and you don't have the behind the scenes experience. So that's I think that's also something that and the next 3 Olympic Games are going to be in iconic cities. I mean, Paris, Milan, and LA, and that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I hope so.
Great. Ari's got a lot of flair.
He sure does.
Let's go back to what you do at Endeavor. I want to hear more about. What's your day job there?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think any day is the same, but being part of obviously the legal department, I work at the corporate level, so I oversee legal matters for a lot of the different Endeavor businesses and in different jurisdictions. So not one day is the same, and I guess again I'm trying to think about what I can talk.
So is it about IP? I mean, broad view. Is it like contractual reviews? Is it negotiation? Is it litigation?
It's all. So I'm part of the litigation team, but a lot of what we do is obviously if we get sued, if we think of suing someone, and that can be contractual, could be IP, could be anything, you name it. As we talked about, I think also sports law, maybe sports law in amateur sports is more of a specific body of law, but I think sports law, the way I do it, more on the commercial side, is more of the law generally in the sports industry, and so that has its quirks obviously, but this is really commercial law is what I do. And again, because the company is so broad we're in over, so we have Endeavor and TKO combined have more than 10,000 employees in over 40 countries, so it's very broad, and that encapsulates the legal work that we do too, reflects that scope. Yeah, it's a long-winded way to say we also do a lot of, as a lawyer, I also do a lot of advisory work for our business teams. So I was pushing the boundaries to either meet Ari's demands, but also see where the future of sports or entertainment or fashion is going. And that can look at, you examine, laws in specific jurisdictions, or look into the partner you're thinking of doing business with. Look at the contracts, like what provisions, depending on what type of contract it is or who you're contracting with, what kind of provisions you should include to protect the company at, the best that we can. And a lot of what I do then is sort of a risk-benefit analysis. So, yes, this deal could, what are the benefits of a projected deal, but also what are the risks related there too. I think as a lawyer for a company like Endeavor, you have to be, you always try to find a way to a yes, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, we want to do this deal. We want to push the boundaries. We want to, continue expanding. But as a lawyer, you try to, again, include as many of the protections that you can think of to protect the company.
It must be, I've dealt with in-house counsels on, in various ways, and there are two types of in-house counsels. There are those who are deal makers and those who are deal breakers. And so from what I hear, you need to be a deal maker when you're an in-house counsel with TKO, with Endeavor, right?
I'd say so. I'm biased, obviously, but I'd say so. Look, I know a lot of also in-house counsel sometimes can be viewed as a cost center by the business people at a company, and that's certainly the thing that we want to avoid. And I think we've worked very hard with our CLO at Endeavor and TKO to through the years to build trust with your business teams and to show them the value add that the legal department can bring. We're not here to break up the deals or say no. We're here to say yes
and to
find ways
flag
to
issues.
Make it happen. Exactly.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's a business you're running. It's not a legal department you're running, right? So, a business is about making deals.
Yeah, correct. We're business partners. Yeah. And I want to, Kevin, sometimes I do say no. There are times where you have to say no. But usually, I think there are ways to get to where the business wants to go and just find the right path toward that goal.
Yeah.
And that's how I see my role as a in-house counsel at Endeavor TKO. And I think our CLO has groomed us that way. And I think lawyers are viewed, hopefully, by the business teams as business partners.
Has that, you had previous experience in law firms before. Did that require of you a shift in the approach you previously had, perhaps?
Definitely.
Yeah? Tell me about that.
And I hope I don't want to offend anyone, but, in a law firm, you have different priorities or different goals. So I was an associate in a law firm for, it might be 8 years. I can't count, but for a certain amount of time, and your priorities are to make your partner happy, and you live in this world where you're in a firm, so you're a bit removed from the business. You don't, the business people are not next to you. You only work with lawyers, mm-hmm. and you view things. I think that the best way to put it is you have different priorities as an outside counsel, and you have a different risk tolerance.
Right.
And when you go in-house, you get to work with the business people hand in hand, and then you get to understand the business goals. And that allows you as an in-house lawyer to see the law. The law is one thing and the risk is one thing, but to apply it in a more specific context whereby we're all working together to achieve the business goal. I'm not just here to tell you the risks. Mm-hmm. I'm not sometimes outside counsel, and that's not all outside counsel. There are some who are great and really do understand our business and are very practical and helpful, and others who are clearly very risk averse or who think about their own CYA mm-hmm. for themselves instead of being...
CYA for our listeners is cover your ass.
Exactly. It's a very, very
all
important
lawyers,
legal term.
Yeah, all lawyers are aware of that.
Correct.
But then you have to, when you're an executive in a company, you need to be able to read through your lawyer's assessment of a situation when sometimes it's a CYA statement from the lawyer. And when you call the lawyer on it nicely, it's fine because the lawyer has expressed the CYA.
A lawyer ultimately is not a business person. Right. We're here to identify risks and protect the company. And if you're a public company, that's even more true because you have to protect the company and the shareholders and the investment that they've made and everything like that, and comply with all the applicable statutes that a public company is subject to. But it's just a different... It's never about not taking into consideration the risk. Of course, you take mm-hmm. it, but it's about how you apply it more practically in a real world case scenario. I think outside counsel sometimes operate under this this perfect world where a memo and they lay all the risk and everything is sort of black and white. And I think when you move in-house or more on the business side, you learn to operate more in gray zones. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's times where no, it's not, we can't do this, it's too risky. But you have to be more comfortable in the gray, I think, is a way to simplified way to put it.
So that's really interesting. The sports law field is sort of like, has emerged as a field of practice for the past, 20 years, 30 years perhaps. There's the Sports Lawyers Association, which is a great association. I happen to be the captain for Quebec for the SLA. And at their annual conference, they have thousands of people. And I've attended a few times, and I was amazed to see that. But people come from different fields. Mm-hmm. And when I receive resumes from law students who want to practice in sports law, my first question to them is, how do you define sports law? How do you define sports law, Isabelle? Or you're a sports lawyer, so how do you define it? What's a sports lawyer?
Well, I think to me, it's a bit what I said before. I really just see myself as a commercial lawyer who operates in the sports industry. Mm-hmm. And in my world, I think sports entertainment, more intertwined. I know the quote that you did read before this author, I think that the lawyer, Alan Goldenberger. Yeah. His position, because I Googled it, seems to be that sports law is more of a body of law for amateur sports, whereas the more professional sports are more akin to entertainment law, and because of the issues that they face and everything. And I that seems fine. I think, or I don't disagree with him, but I think more and more today, and where the sport industry seems to be going, I think those lines will be more and more blurred. As you see with college athletes now, their NIL rights or name, image, and likeness rights now can be monetized, and that's a huge shift that, because of a Supreme Court decision a few years ago.
Gambling is now legal. Legal in the U.S.
Yep.
And it's
huge.
Yeah, it's coming in Canada as well.
Yeah, I bet it is. It's a huge source of income. Why, as a government, I would not pass on this opportunity. Sure. Yeah, once the first state, I think, was New Jersey, or that's where the debate, arose really and led to the Supreme Court decision. I think once the floodgates are open, it's hard to pass that kind of income.
So sports law to you could be an array of fields.
I think so.
It's labor law, sure. It's IP, it's intellectual property, it's contractual, it's commercial.
Yeah, it's all of it. So especially in the U.S. where I practice, obviously, professional sports, a lot of them, and this was more my firm work when I was at Winston & Strawn, a lot of those professional sports are governed by CBAs, so collective bargaining agreements. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the disputes are labor law governed, or you apply labor law concepts. And a lot of it ends up being an arbitration. If there's a dispute, most of the CBAs have an arbitration clause. So a lot of, and then I go back to what I took at Duke, because a lot of the laws that when I worked in private practice in the sports field, a lot of what I did in terms of law, to answer your question, was a lot of it was contract, but labor, antitrust, and IP. Mm-hmm. And now what I do now at Endeavor is there's more commercial work, so more like contract and advisory work, pre-contract and even post-contract, but not pure litigation all the time now, which is what I did at the firm. But yeah, it's very varied, and that's because, I'm very lucky to work at a company like Endeavor and TKO, and there's really, there's no company like it, the way that it's so broad and has so many tentacles in so many different industries, but types of businesses, types of personalities, countries, languages, types of law. So as a lawyer there, it's like I work for 12 different companies. And so that's why no day is the same. And it's a constant learning curve, which is great. So I've been there for 4 years, and I can say very confidently I'm still learning almost every day.
How big is the legal department in Endeavor?
I think there's about 200 lawyers, or that was true pre-TKO. That's most of the lawyers though are like drafters, contract drafters. They work on transactional work.
Okay.
Or business affairs type of people, which obviously is what we do. A lot of the talent representation side of our business, we help clients make deals, and we help them paper the deals. And we're a deal making company. We're deal makers, as you said. Oh, and the litigation team is quite small worldwide.
What can you tell us about the UFC and WWE transaction or merger? Like, what can tell us about that? That was a huge thing.
That was huge. Yeah, it really was. So last year, I mean, all I can tell you everything I know from everything I'll say is from public sources, but.
No, we wanted the nitty gritty details.
So.
Come on, no one's listening.
Exactly. I'm muting myself. Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously, again, probably Ari saw an opening and a way to. He saw the synergies that could be done or implemented by having UFC, that's really a sports, property, and WWE is this juggernaut in entertainment, right? That's. I don't want to. I'm not telling anyone a secret, but it's all arranged. I know it's all scripted, and UFC is obviously not scripted, and that's a true sport, quote unquote. But building them together, their businesses are very much aligned in terms of it's a lot of live events. It's live events across the globe. A lot of the income that the companies make is through global partnerships, domestically but on a global basis, and their production, their content production. Mm-hmm. And that was Ari's vision for a while. I think that's what you asked me a bit, or comments we made before about Ari's vision, that his view was that content was king. And I think nowadays, and that's my opinion, is live sports is the best kind of content because it's really the only live content anymore with all the streamers and everything you can watch on demand and people's short attention spans and whatnot. But so sports properties now have increased, and you've seen this across all the sports, have really tremendously increased it in value. And again, it seems like Ari saw it a long time ago. And the TKO, so you spinning off UFC to then merge it with WWE to form TKO and listed on the NYSE, that's sort of, it seems very consistent with how he sees, or I don't know how he sees things, I have no idea. But I mean, it's consistent with this strategy to focus on sports properties. And I can say just working at TKO is just amazing how dynamic it is. Where it's again very public information, but where they want to take the company, how much growth it has just since the merger in September 2023. We're now at the end of Q1 of 2024, and you see it's just revenue's already increased. We've already seen the synergies with the various groups among WWE and UFC by merging, let's say, the global partnerships department. And now, so one company helps the other, and it's more obviously streamlined on many levels. The media rights sale, that's a huge part of a company like UFC and WWE because obviously they produce all these events and content, and then you shop around the rights. And through the connection with Endeavor and IMG, which has a huge, expertise in media rights sale, it just seems like a perfect fit.
So, I mean, where does Major League Baseball and where do all those leagues, professional sports leagues, fit into this, and do they fit into it?
In the future, where this is going?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, so I don't work with any of the sports leagues really. I know the company does in some levels, but what I can say is, again, from public articles, just the value of a franchise in the NFL has gone tremendously up in the last few years.
To your point, the live sports is really king.
I do think so personally. Yeah, I definitely think so, and I think there's a big interest in the U.S. and worldwide in terms of investing in sports. And I'm not, maybe it's because of live content, maybe it's because it's very prestigious, maybe it's, I'm not sure, but there's definitely an engouement, a lot of investment in sports franchises.
And would you say there's also something about arena sports where you can actually have a captive audience rather than, for example, equestrian or other sports that are out in the open, like marathons. Is there a distinction here where you can have a captive audience, for example, in a UFC match or in a football game, in a stadium, and with fixed cameras rather than cameras that are on helicopters? And, I mean, the Tour de France is always going to be watched, but that's an exception.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. I think it all depends on the production you do with it, because it's content, right? You're producing a show ultimately. And what you're telling me makes me think of Formula One, where it's a very long race. If you're sitting in the stand, you see one corner. If you're lucky, or you see the car for half a second.
Right.
Obviously, they're so quick. And so maybe before, or some people didn't buy the product, or they'd rather watch it on TV because you see the whole race instead of going to the event. But now this is something we talked about too. Now it shows like Drive to Survive, where you really get to know about the sport, about the team strategies, about the drivers and the drama and the storylines. Yeah. Then they become a lot more, obviously attached and into it. And then you've seen that in Formula One, how the interest, well, definitely in the US at least, how now sales have gone up in terms of tickets. Yep. So it's I don't know. I hope I answered your question.
No, I think it's a great answer, and I think that in the storytelling, like you're saying, I mean, sports is about storytelling.
Correct.
And it's about, I mean, what's a season in any sport, in baseball or in football? It's about a story. It's about progressing from week to week and until the end of the season. That's a story right there. But then if you involve also the personality and the personal family of the players, whether it's football, whether it's Formula One.
With Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And Travis Kelce. Apparently that was the most watched Super Bowl in I don't know how long. But
so then you have the emotions, you have the emotional attachment from the fans to the... and anyway, I have a personal view about how the professional sports leagues have... change the product by favoring transfers between teams, where when I was a kid, the player would be playing with Montreal Canadiens for 10 years, for 15 years, so you would develop an attachment. Now, you try to develop an attachment with a player, but next thing you know, he's been traded, and then you have to develop a new attachment. So I think that the clubs have had to rethink their marketing to make it more flashy in the stadium in order to keep their product interesting, because the players themselves have become commodities to a certain point.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
That's my point. It's my personal view, but I know it's not shared by everyone. But I mean, the product has evolved, and it will continue to evolve.
Sure. You should get someone from the Les Canadiens to come talk.
Why not? Next person coming in. We've seen recently Netflix, who that started staging live sports events. We saw Alcaraz against Nadal. So that's also something that's really interesting. It's not your product, right? It's not your property.
Not this one, but I mean, if we're gonna go there, this part is part of. I think Netflix has also caught on to the fact that live sports is a very, very high valued commodity and something that you want on your platform, because it brings eyes to your platform. And you've seen it with Amazon as well, with the NFL, and I know there's more out there. I mean, UFC has a long-term contract with ESPN Plus or Disney to have the pay-per-view fights only on their platform in the US, and I think Canada as well. Mm-hmm. But the WWE, part of TKO, just signed recently a 10-year deal. Look, I don't want to... Someone should fact check me, but I think it's a 10-year deal with Netflix.
Okay.
Valued at $5 billion, I think. This is all publicly available, so someone should fact check me. But that's huge. That's huge for Netflix, and that's huge for WWE, and it's just shows where the industry is going and how much everyone wants to get in sports, and because live content seems to be king. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Okay, so what do you see? 10 years from now, in 34, where's all this going to go? Because 10 years ago, in 2012, this was not here. Yeah. This was not here. Where do you see that 10 years from now?
2010 or 20. it's hard for me to predict what's going to happen next year.
Yeah.
Especially at a company like Endeavor that is always sort of pushing.
All right,
boundaries.
so let's break it down. Like, where do you see the Olympic movement 10 years from now? Like, do you see more collaboration? Like, we're seeing Endeavor sort of getting in with the hospitality. Do you see things evolving from the IOC side?
I think so. Why not? Once you're so big, right? And then you find other players, because the sports industry is getting bigger and bigger. You'll see more and more players who have this expertise, and I have no clue what they're gonna do. But if I'm the IOC, of course I would want a partner where you probably get paid minimum guarantees, so you have a fixed income, and so you can calculate how much you're gonna make from the games and whatnot. You don't have the risk, and then you partnering with someone who knows exactly what they're doing, who are experts in that specific field. So, yeah, I think that would be, I definitely would see that. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't know, but if I'm the IOC, I would do that.
And other different sports, are there any like new sports that could come?
I think the IOC is trying to do that. They're trying to keep it cool, and I think in Paris you'll see breakdancing, for instance, for the first time.
Call it breaking.
Breaking.
You can't call it breakdance.
Oh, no?
No, you can't. I learned that because...
Breaking.
Yeah, it's called breaking.
Okay.
Breakdance was back in the 70s, when it started.
Oh, my God.
You can't say breakdance. So,
I'm
older than you, but I'm teaching you something new.
You're like, you look younger than me, and you're definitely cooler than me. So there you go.
No, I didn't know that.
So I learned something every day, like I said.
Anyway, but you're right. Breaking is going to be in Paris, and they've
skateboarding was at the last Olympics.
Yeah, skateboarding was in Tokyo as well. Yeah, they're getting into those new sports, cool sports to renew the audience, I guess.
Well, I think that is it. To go back to your question, if I can see, it's already a challenge, and you see it in every article you read now about how to keep people watching sports, because yes, live content is king. I think that's still true, but more and more, I think the younger generations, they seem to have, I don't know the data, but I've read this somewhere, just shorter attention spans.
Yeah.
And that makes it tough for leagues, let's say like the NBA or whatever, like baseball. I'm sure hockey too, to an extent, where it's longer, or soccer, like longer games, and you have to keep watching throughout the 45 minutes or an hour and a half or whatever it is. And so it's tough. It's tough when people are on their phone all the time, or when they're tired after I don't know how many minutes. But I think that's a challenge that's happening in the industry, or has been happening, and will probably continue to happen. And I know sports gambling, which we mentioned before, I think that has been welcomed by the leagues, because that helps people stay watching the sport. Because if you have, whether it's $2 or $200 on, whether he's going to pitch twice or 3 times, or he's going to home run or whatever, you're going to be watching the game. You'll be a lot more into it and watching every minute of it till the end, because you have some personal stake in it. So, yeah, that's what
I think the technology also has a role to play in making the sports more fun. If you look at the Tour de France, for example, sometimes you'll see some bubbles showing like how one cyclist is going, what speed they're going, and what I'd like to see is heart rate to be added to that.
And it's a whole set of legal issues too. Biometrics.
Yeah, of course. Well, you have to assume that the athletes will accept being monitored and sharing that data to make it more fun. And if you look at baseball, just watching the season last year, it's amazing to watch, the pitch, to see the box, and then to someone who's watching baseball for the first time, it's very easy to understand right from the start, and then also to see what kind of effect the ball had. That's not something that an uninitiated watcher or viewer would see, but then it's right there. I think the MLB has done great things to make the sport more fun, more accessible, without necessarily changing the DNA of the game. Without touching that.
That's interesting. Huh?
Yeah. So great. Well, we're just about to close this thing. Anything else you'd like to share about your outlook on your profession as a sports lawyer? Is it fun? Do you like it?
I do. I definitely do.
Ari may be listening.
I doubt. But Yeah, in case. I love my job. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
Most days, at least. Look, I mean, you're a lawyer too. I don't know if someone also a lawyer listening to the podcast. I think the type of law, and that goes a little bit to what I said before. The type of law to me has never really mattered. It's who I worked with and in what industry I worked in, because ultimately that's what's interesting to me. And so, yeah, I really do. I do like being in a company that's always in movement and that pushes boundaries and keeps my job exciting. And being in New York now for 10 years, New York's kind of the center, in my mind at least, the center of the world when it comes to sports and entertainment. Of course, there's other cities. But
a lot of New Yorkers think it's the center of everything.
I was going to say, I'm officially a New Yorker now after 10 years, so I'm going to say that. But yeah, no, I think it's really cool. But I'm happy to be back home in Montreal and be able to talk about my experience. And hopefully I'll be back for some more SLA.
Well, thanks so much, Isabelle. I mean, I'm extremely proud of your. We've known each other for a number of years now, probably 15 or so.
That's what I think.
And I've seen you evolve even when you were at Duke University. And congratulations! Really proud of what you've accomplished. You have so much more to still accomplish, and I know that there's no limit for you. Congratulations, and have fun with Endeavor, and great success with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.